guys, Kiana here. I'm so glad to be back. I am elated just to be able to come and share with you again some tips that would help us all live a more fruitful and valuable life. So, um, sometimes we have to take time, right, to hit the restart button on our lives after we've experienced a tragedy or some type of hardship or some really drastic event that kind of, you know, caught us off guard. It blindsided us to the point where it just like knocked the wind out of our lungs, right? So, when we experience these things, um, it can cause us to have a whirlwind of emotion. A lot of feelings, overwhelm us to the point where we can't function or we get paralyzed, right, from moving forward from that tragedy. So, I'm just here today just to share a little bit about, how we can overcome those things and how we can just live triumphantly, in the midst of these chaotic times that we're in. So, our negative emotions, they are human. They are a part of us. We're not robots. So at the end of the day, when something negative happens, we have a negative reaction. It's anger, it's fear, it's anxiety, stress, all of that. It happens when we go through things. But it's how we react or how we process that information, and which determines how we move forward or how we recover from these traumatic times, right? So, for instance, in contrast, I can kind of liken that experience, like when you go through a tragedy, to a ship in the midst of a storm. So the wind is blowing, the rain is beating on the ship, the waves are trying to sink the ship down and everything. And it's the anchor that drops down into the ground on the sea floor that holds the stability of the ship in the midst of the waves and the storm. So how do you, like, I know you're asking, like, well, what does a ship have to do with me and reality? Like, how does that look? So for us, we're the ship, right? So we're this big vessel, and we're in the midst of this storm, wind, rain, and the wind and the rain and the storm is our troubles, right? That's the tragedy, that's the hardship, that's the misfortune, right? The waves, well, the waves are our feelings. That's our emotions, the fear, the anxiety, the uncertainty, the anger, all of that. That is trying to overwhelm us to capsize the ship, right? The floor, the sea floor or the ocean floor bottom, that is the Word of God. That is there to be stability for us. That's there for us to be able to dig down deep into, to keep us grounded, to keep us just stable in the midst of a traumatic time. Now the anchor, what the anchor is our choice. The anchor is our choice to reach down and dig into the Word, to seek God's face and His knowledge and strength in the midst of trouble. So sometimes, we can forget about that anchor. And I know I'm sitting right here. I'm not just the spokesperson, I'm the client too. So You know, we experience things that really mess us up, and we forget to drop anchor, and we forget that we have a resource there to help us through these traumatic times. So let me give you a few examples. So I have a cousin that I am so proud of. He's so amazing, and his name is Joseph McLean. He is a very talented college basketball player, and he plays basketball abroad internationally. Now, um, a couple years ago, he experienced something that was just so devastating. He and another uh, player was attacked by some people who were racist, and he was brutally injured. He was stabbed. Now, thank God he did survive and he got through it. But what is really just prominent about this story is the fact that instead of doing what he could have done, which is, take his anger, fear, stress over the whole situation and let it overwhelm him to the point where, he no longer trusted people, or he no longer wanted to play basketball, or a whole slew of things that he could have, allow the emotion to dictate and drive him into a negative direction. But instead, he chose to use the situation to come up with a clothing line that he can kind of shed light on this subject in society, about our choice to either love or hate each other, right? Despite our differences. So I don't know if you can see it. I'm repping this shirt. It's Love versus Hate. That's the V. Love versus Hate. And it's really cool. I've got a couple of his sweatshirts and sweatpants. The gear is phenomenal. And really, it's a choice, right? We choose to either love each other despite our differences, or to hate the fellow man because of our differences. So I'm just so proud of him that he chose to be a light in this darkness of our society. And shout out to JoJo. Anyway, I will put his information down if you want to get yourself some gear and support the cause. So again, being anchored. We're anchored in the Word, anchored to some stability to allow us to use the situation that we have to turn into something positive and be just a light force in society. Now, to my personal testimony. So I received some really devastating news back December 17th. My oldest son was shot to death, and it literally just deflated me. It deflated me to the point where I was paralyzed. I stopped doing the videos. I was in the midst of writing a second book. I stopped writing. I just could not move forward. And I've experienced loss before. Like I lost my mother. It was very devastating, and lost a lot of relatives. But this one, to lose a child, it was something that I wasn't prepared. As a parent, we know that eventually our children will bury us, right? And that's the hope for things, the way of things that we hope it would go, the direction we hope it would go. But in this case, it did not. And so I was really paralyzed with it. Now, It's an everyday struggle, and I say it's an everyday struggle because you still struggle with it. It's not something I can't sit here and lie and say, oh, I'm over it. No. Um, it's an everyday battle that you have to consciously make a choice to live, and be, just use the sorrow that you're feeling as a fuel to do something in this life, right? To fulfill purpose, and just use your testimony for someone else, right? Because like, we tend to be in the midst of trouble, and we think that we're the only one in this whole wide world that's experiencing things, but when in fact there's people suffering all over this world. Everybody is going through something. One day or another, somebody is going through something. So why not be able to use your testimony to lift someone else up, right? Like, it's like almost a duty for us, as fellow humans, to try to do something meaningful to help people out. We're placed here with gifts, different abilities to do, and it's an opportunity to see God work through us, right? So, just take the opportunity to lift someone up by going through, when you see someone going through the same thing you're going through. Be transparent. Be transparent about what's going on with you, so you don't know what it means to somebody else to hear that you're going through the same thing, to help them be strengthened and uplifted. But on a individual note, again, it's struggle and a choice to be able to get into the Word. You should have an arsenal, right? Right now we're going through this pandemic, and of course, who would have thought we'd be here going through this, right? But we are. So what do? We have the choice to panic, run around and be angry and fearful and scary and whatever else. And when we're watching the news and we see certain individuals talking on the news that we want to burst a hole in our own television sets, you have to be able to say, Jesus, take the wheel already. Take the wheel, and you have to pull out those Bible verses. You have to, because that's the only way that we will get through and overcome all of this. I found a good one that I really, really like. It's John, where am I? John 16:33. I have said these things to you, that in me you may have peace. In the world you will have tribulation. So you will go through stuff, right? But take heart. I have overcome the world. So God is in control, people. God is in control here, even though it does not feel so every time we wake up in the morning and we watch the news. It does not feel so, but He is in control. And we have to make a choice, a conscious choice, to reach down and seek God in the midst of the struggle. Be anchored, okay? I choose to be anchored in the Word and to use my testimony to make a difference in this world. What will you choose? Anyway, I do thank you so much for joining me today. I love you, love you, love you. I'm so glad again to be back. I'll see you next week. And remember to always, always live your best life and be your best self. Take care. God bless.